Hello, and welcome to Levels Plus Whenever episode 163. We're finally done with all of the non-numbered episodes for what feels like a month plus now. We're moving back into the normal format, and one second, I have to change the lighting because we're talking about Silent Hill F finally. So a little bit spookier ambiance. I don't have any pickups today, so we're just gonna dive right in. Gonna say up front, I'm just going to talk about this game with spoilers as they come up. So the short version is I think that Silent Hill F could be the best in the series. It's a real toss-up for me between it and Silent Hill 3. They're right next to each other on my list. I'm still debating. There's a couple things that I feel put it into that debate. Otherwise, it would almost be unquestioned, in my opinion. But that's basically where I sit with Silent Hill F, non-spoiler edition. But I want to talk about so much about this game. I wish that I had recorded this earlier than I have, because I have probably forgotten some things. But I'm going to do my best. Let's dive in after this short break with a last spoiler warning. Alright, Silent Hill F. Konami has done it twice. They have surprised me with a new Silent Hill title. They did it with Silent Hill 2 Remake, which I had written off as a doomed experiment with a terrible developer who doesn't understand mental health issues. Somehow, despite the odds, that all worked out. We had a fantastic remake with a couple flaws that really stop it from being the best in the series. Mainly the mannequin enemies being way too aggressive. James being a little too combat oriented for my liking. But in the grand scheme of things, they nailed the vibes, they nailed the characters, they nailed the story beats, they nailed the mental health, psychological, psychosexual tension that is Silent Hill 2. About as good as you could, honestly, if not better in a lot of ways. I think that they actually treated Angela better in the remake than they did in the original in terms of demonstrating what she was going through. It's really remarkable now that we come to Silent Hill F, a completely different developer, NeoBards, a very different take on what Silent Hill could mean, set in a 1960s rural Japan instead of a 1990s Americana-drenched suburb type of vibe. And they did it again. I kind of wrote off Silent Hill F, and I was proven wrong again. The overall game, I think, is easily one of the best in the series, if not the best. I'm still tossing around my placement of Silent Hill 3 versus Silent Hill F. And as I've said before, Silent Hill 3 is my favorite of the series, primarily because Heather is such a strong character, and the story that is surrounding her is really well done. Even if it throws back to Silent Hill 1, the story's not as good as 2. I would also argue the story's not as good as F. But I think that Heather carries that story really well with fantastic voice acting, a wonderful character design, and just a really phenomenal pillar to everything that's going on in that game. Plus, there's some really great graphical effects for the PS2. I think it's the best looking PS2 game, arguably. It really blows me away at what they pulled off on the PS2 with Silent Hill 3. So there's a lot of reasons why I like it. It also has a really silly bonus thing that you can get that turns Heather into a Sailor Moon pretty princess type of thing, which is absolutely hilarious and a really fun Easter egg, to be honest. I think it's one of the best in the series. Anyway, Silent Hill F does a lot of things differently, and in a lot of ways does it excellently. I think Hanako, our new protagonist, is a fantastic, complex, difficult character to fully wrap your head around. I think that her storyline is absolutely fascinating. I don't know if I'm 100% on board with having to replay the game multiple times to understand more of it than the base game. The Nier approach of video game narrative worked for Nier. It kind of works for Silent Hill F, but it's not as breezy unless you play it on super easy like I did to get back through that whole game and see all the new things, because literally there's new things peppered in everywhere. Hanako is just a great character in English and Japanese. I think that the Japanese is stronger. I think that Susie did a really good job in English trying to recapture the same performance, but the Japanese is so good. Konatsu Kato just killed it in her performance. Probably my favorite of 2025 outside of Andy Serkis and Claire Obscure, who I think was robbed. I think Lune was also robbed a little bit. Mael and Verso, of course, did incredible. But I've got a preference for Lune as my favorite character, and I thought Renoir was so well voice acted. Anyway, this is not about Expedition 33. Hanako has a very, very fascinating story, even if it's split up among multiple endings. The game is talking about so much that I just am floored at how detailed and critical it goes after the patriarchy. It goes after familial expectations. It goes after marriage. It goes after gender dynamics. It goes after class. It goes after the rural versus urban dichotomy. There's so much happening in Silent Hill F that I love the story through metaphor aspect that it pulls off beautifully. You can see it in everything surrounding Hanako. You can see it in her family and her friends. You can see it in the enemy design and in the environmental changes going on. You can super see it in the other world. My God. There is a sequence in the other world where Fox Mask is basically possessing Hanako's desire to be a wife that has been indoctrinated into her head by her parents, by her culture, and she willingly sacrifices so much of her autonomy through the most brutal acts in this game. Sawing off her own arm so a new fox arm could be attached. Being branded specifically to the Fox clan that Fox Mask is a part of. Having her face cut off so a mask can go over it that is a fox. It's so explicitly vicious. I winced at the intensity of those cutscenes. We'll get to some final thoughts about how that works a little bit later, but I feel that when Silent Hill F is really clicking on its metaphoric discussion of all of those subjects, especially gender dynamics, especially with the role of a daughter, a woman in 1960s Japan, it's so realistically brutal. You feel it deep inside. You feel that tension. You feel that constrained expectation that you have to be a wife. You have to be a mother. You have to become property. You lose your individualism for the man to be in control of your everything. And Silent Hill F explores that more than I think any other game that I can immediately think of, particularly with the Japanese angle in mind. Just incredible all the way through, save one detail I'm going to get to in a minute. You feel Hanako's frustration and resistance to what her society has taught her parents, her friends, her world to put on her. You feel that tension. That is basically what she is going through as her town is taken over by the beautiful corpse-like flowers dominating everything. I think that the dynamic that she has with her family is fascinating because she clearly has issues with her parents. She clearly has a lost respect for her older sister who has sacrificed everything that Hanako respected to become a wife. You kind of start feeling that with her friends, and you learn that all of her friends are jealous about her in some way, some extent. Renko especially, because Renko also has feelings for Shu, but feels that Hanako is not the right girl for Shu. And the wild thing is that I don't think Shu and Hanako fully realize that that's where they're heading, or do they even want to head that way? They've been partners, in quotes. They've been partners on the Space Force, or whatever they called their little space crew. They are genderless friends. They are as platonic can get, but as they are now teenagers and as their hormones awaken, they are unsure of where they are. They are unsure if that partnership should evolve or stay put or be left behind. This game is incredible on so many fronts when it comes to story, that it's a little disappointing that when you get to the last, what would be considered a true ending. So you've got the first ending, which is the commentary on medicine and prescriptions and addiction and drug use, where Hanako has been taking this medication that Shu has been giving her for her headaches that she's been having, but it turns out that she is taking them all the time, taking them whenever she feels the littlest thing, and has become addicted to whatever it is that Shu has been providing. And as you beat the final boss and you start trying to escape the temple because you're in the other world, all of a sudden there's red pills everywhere. And I'm assuming if you don't pick them up, you will die if you run out. So as you get near the end, pills start just showing up, getting bigger and bigger and bigger as you get near the exit. It's a really excellent visual representation of what Hanako has been going through if you took a single one in the entire run. That ending concludes with Hanako's wedding, and she has murdered some people, probably because she couldn't take the medicine that she needed in order to kind of dumb away the pain that she was going through. Really interesting. At that point, New Game Plus opens up, and then you can play through the game again and get more depth on what's going on. So there's more notes. Characters do different things in cutscenes, say different things in cutscenes. There's a couple new side quests that you can pick up. Hanako is in her beast form, which I described a little bit earlier. In the other world, pretty much from the start, I think once you get to a certain point, it just clicks on. So you can kind of blaze through those sections a little bit faster because she's so much stronger in that mode. It's interesting. It's a very interesting take on trying to flesh out the game's narrative threads. I went with the Shu ending, I think. Yes, I went with the Shu ending. Where you find out that Shu has been providing Hanako those pills so that she would not get married. He had his own reasoning to do that. So then you just kind of go, oh, everyone sucks. If you go with Fox Mask, you go the Fox Mask route, you end up discovering that Fox Mask is being controlled, is that kid that you saved as a child that you find out near the end of the first run, who has basically believed so hard that moment of you two intersecting is fate and you're destined to be together. So the gods of the cult of the fox or whatever has decreed that Fox Mask must take Hanako at all costs in order to prevent some calamity with it gets really godlike with the Fox Mask stuff once you get into it, which is one of my mild critiques, is that I feel like the cultist part kind of takes over instead of the more psychological, which is definitely my preference in Silent Hill for the most part. That it remains attached to the character, and I feel like Hanako becomes like deified in a way that it kind of strips her of that agency even more than it's already being taken from her, especially once you get into the last ending where it just gets strange. In the last ending, you find out that the gods are forcing Hanako's two halves. I didn't tell you about that, but basically, that otherworld Hanako is a separate desire within Hanako, and the one that you've been playing in the real, is the one that wants things to stay as they are. So you have Hanako, who wants to be in the moment, to live like the life that she has been living, and not have all of these expectations being shoved on her about getting married, having children, losing her agency and independence. And then you have the Hanako that wants to fulfill that desire to be loved and be intimate with a man and to do things like that, to sacrifice, to be that role model, to be like her sister, I suppose, to let go of the hate that she's built about her family, to let go of the friends that she knew, and to transform into a new person. That's the argument, that these two Hanakos are going to go at each other, and one of them's going to win, and bad things are going to happen no matter what happens. Either Hanako gets married to Fox Mask and sheds her literal face, her agency and independence to fulfill the desire of Japanese culture, or if she decides she wants to live the life that she had been living and continue to just be friends with Shu and be friends with the others and to continue pushing against her parents' will and to not get married to this guy that she doesn't fully remember because she was like 4 when they were first introduced, when she rescued that kid. The gods enable, or at least the fox god is unable to prevent the water dragon god from coming back and basically destroying the town through geysers and making a nearby volcano active again. So we're told that both of those endings are bad. But you have to get one of those to unlock the true ending. And I'm going to throw true in quotes because I really feel like this game is up to interpretation. The true ending is that Hanako's 2 halves realize what's going on. That the gods are using them to kill each other. So that way they can be in control of, we'll just say, that town. More like the world, honestly. Really epic boss fight that takes the 2 boss fights from the other 2 modes, or other 2 endings, and has you flip-flop between the 2, which is really sick. And the way that it looks is super cool. A really fantastic final boss sequence that's really memorable. I actually didn't play that one because I didn't want to play through the game a 3rd time. I watched it, but I was super like, whoa, that's so sick. I would kind of want to do it when I'm ready to dive back into this game next time. Once you defeat both of the gods that are trying to control things, which is basically Fox God and what's possessing Shu in this case, but Shu's no longer in there. It's just basically like the Tengu god that I think is representing the water that it gets a little mixed up when it comes to that piece of the game. The 2 Hanakos decide that they are going to exist together in a silent town that seemingly has nobody else in it anymore. And Fox Hanako wants to still get married but doesn't want to rush into it. And real Hanako has the ability to just not make a commitment to anything and can just be herself and make her own decisions and la da 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 da. But there's a reason why I've had issues with this ending. The thing that bothers me is that there is a couple moments in that final run where Hanako forgives her parents. And I don't think that at least the father's was earned. The Fox Hanako in the other world doesn't want to do it, but the real Hanako does. And I feel like it should be reversed. I also understand that Fox Hanako has, killed them in the earlier endings. And will do so at the end of this section. Regardless, that doesn't necessarily change. So I understand that, but I don't get where real Hanako comes to the understanding that her father's actions, which are really shitty, by the way. He is a misogynist asshole to her and to her mother. You don't really see it with her sister, but I imagine it was very similar. He literally throws a knife at her because she disobeys him. Heinous behavior. So I feel like that sequence, that did not land for me. I thought that was really something I could not quite wrap my head around about why. Where did real Hanako come to that conclusion from? And then having the dichotomy of the 2 Hanakos in peace kind of works, but at the same time, I feel like Fox Hanako is still so infatuated with Fox Mask that like you literally cut your arm off. You allowed him to cut your face off. You got branded by the clan. I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think that is the person you should be with. He was trying to seduce you against your will. There's so much going on with this game that even some of the critique and some of the, like, where some of that critique chooses to land, it's not my favorite. I do see the direction, for that at least. I do see the direction that the real person underneath the spell that was cast upon Fox Mask by the god prevented that dynamic from actually having any authenticity. And she wants to see if it's authentic, but she's literally got a fox arm. So it's weird. I feel like there should have been some moment where the two of them merged together. The arm went away, and then she gets to make a choice about what her future holds. That her parents don't get to make that decision. Shu doesn't get to make that decision. Fox Mask doesn't get to make that decision. Hanako does. But I think that's part of the argument that Silent Hill F is also making, because it was 1960s Japan. She doesn't get to make that choice unless nobody exists. And that's kind of what the game ends on, is that, oh, there's nobody around to tell her what to do anymore. Just her and herself working out their issues and finding peace within themselves to reunite as one whole. That is, I think, the gist of what it's going for at the end, but I think it's a little muddy. So, that's the story critique that I have in an otherwise impeccable game. New Game Plus for some story beats is a little obnoxious, especially since you have to go through the entire game to get all of it. And then you have to go through the entire game again to get the true ending. And then you have to go through it another time if you want to get the ending you didn't choose for your second ending. That's 4 times. This game's not super long, but it's also not super short. Even if you skip cutscenes on the 4th run, it's going to probably take like 30 to 35 hours to do that. That's a lot of time. Doing basically the same thing, because the combat and the enemies and all that don't really change. It's more of the notes and dialogue that changes. So I'm not 100% behind that. I'm not 100% behind the true ending. I kind of liked where it landed with Shu and Hanako living a life where they're happy with what they did in the end. Everybody seems to at least land back where Hanako would like them to be. And then, you know, shit happens because you can't control geysers. Let's talk about other things. Visually stunning. One of the most beautiful games I think I've seen on the PS5. I am just really impressed at how effective the mood and atmosphere is through the slow transformation of this rural fishing village into this grotesque beauty with all of the flowers spurting out of flesh. It's hard to describe that as being beautiful, but that's kind of the intent, is that there's disgust in beauty, and that's what they were going for, and they nailed it. Music, incredible, fantastic. Akira Yamaoka came back, did some tracks. A couple other new composers to the series stepped in. They did a great job. I think that is it The Bird's Lament? I think that's what it's called. That is my favorite song of 2025. That song is incredible. If you haven't listened to that one yet, that's certainly worth a listen. It doesn't really spoil anything. I don't remember if there's any dialogue in that one. It's really good. I liked the combat. I think that it, at least on easy, it found a nice balance between being very visceral, but also having a nice flow. Some people compared it to Dark Souls. I don't like Souls games. So I didn't see that comparison because I liked generally how the combat felt. Being able to dodge and getting rewarded for dodges was really nice. If you timed things well, you could parry, which was a really sick thing if you could do that. Very hard, but you could do it. Hanako being able to do what she does is canon. It makes sense. She's a track star. She's athletic, so she's able to just weave really well and react really well to things, which was my critique with James, even in the remake, is that I feel that James doesn't really establish why he's dodging beyond being a coward. So the combat engine didn't really click as tightly as I would have liked. I would have liked the option to have less combat. But I also understand why there's combat, because that's its metaphor, is James hates women to some extent. I guess there's spoilers for Silent Hill F2 in here too. Sorry, I'll put that up front. But I enjoyed the combat. I enjoyed exploring. I think that there's some really great just level design. I do feel at points that the other world is a little bit long. Probably because it's so oppressive and dire with what's going on in that part, especially once Foxmask's dominion over that Hanako is becoming more and more complete over time. But I think the boss fights are pretty good. I think that the enemy design is exquisite. I wish there was a few more. There's only really like 6 enemy types in the game, and I would have liked maybe like 10 to just have a little bit more variety. All the voice acting's good. The writing is really good. All the notes are good. I think that Silent Hill F is in contention to be the best one in the series and one of the best horror games of all time. It's really well done. It's really impressive. I really hope that Konami taps them to do another new one, because I think that they've demonstrated that they got it. They got the memo. They know what they need to do for Silent Hill. They made an incredibly psychological, incredibly vicious critique of society through Silent Hill F in a completely different location and setting, time, that still feels like Silent Hill. Thank you, friends, for being patient, waiting for this opinion piece on this game to come out. I will see you for the next one in a week or two. Take care.